So for all the women or Women Thriving Unapologetically Facebook group, we have Kimberley Healey. I am pronouncing your name correctly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and we're going to be talking about dating and all the things around dating and dating apps and how we can find love and not outsource it to a $1 billion industry.
$5 billion.
Yeah, multi-billion dollar industry. Yeah. So what I'll do, Kimberly, is I'll start off the show with just a little drop in before I introduce you so that we can get grounded in our bodies. And you've listened to the show. I do it every time. Yeah. So that we can be more fully present to where we are in our bodies and this moment together. Mm. Are you being affected by the fires in Canada?
No,
Uh, I know
no, for once.
I know it's more on our side, but yeah,
Yeah, no.
feeling the
Beautiful
congestion and
here. Yeah, it's scary seeing New York like that.
yeah. So I feel like my head.
20 seconds.
Okay, here we go.
All right, here we go. Have a great show.
Welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Over the next hour, you will hear raw, honest, and inspiring conversation between Lynsie and her guests, discussing how to thrive, live joyfully, and abundantly in spite of life's challenges. Now, here is your host, Lynsie McKeown.
Hello and welcome, ladies, for another episode of Women Thriving Unapologetically. And I do hope that you are feeling a sense of thriving in your life right now. And if you are not, especially around especially around your relationships and love, then this episode is definitely for you, because we're going to be diving into how we can find love and not be outsourcing it to a multi-billion-dollar industry, these dating apps. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But before we do anything, we always invite ourselves to take a moment to stop, pause, and breathe so that we can become more present to where we are in our bodies and our emotions, and even in our minds in this moment. So I invite you to stop whatever you're doing in this moment, perhaps closing your eyes if that's safe and comfortable for you, and just bring awareness to your body by first bringing awareness to your breath, just breathing in and out through your nose, allowing the breath to fill the body and also cleanse the body, that we can be filled with breath and we can use the breath to release. And in that filling and that releasing, we can perhaps bring our awareness to our hearts and sense where we are in our hearts right now. Are our hearts filled with love, or are our hearts longing for love? Not one is not better than the other. It's just noticing where we are in this moment. And perhaps even placing your hand upon your heart and feeling the connection there, hand to heart. And you're welcome to stay here as long as you want, just to breathe and be present to your body, be present to your heart, whatever is there presenting itself for you today, and listening to the show in this manner. Or you can come back and listen as you go about your day. But just continuing to check in with your heart and your body as we talk, and even throughout your day. So you'll always be present to what lies there, which is the deep well of love. So let's go ahead and invite our amazing guest, Kimberley Healey, to the show. Now, Kimberley Healey is incredible because she is actually a relationship coach. She categorizes herself as an Ivy League Ph.D. in French literature, who has turned sex, love, and intimacy coach for smart people who find it perplexing? How many of you find it so damn perplexing? How you can be accomplished, like really accomplished, and yet not be able to find love in your life? And so Kimberley is an experienced teacher of yoga and literature, and she combines her talents in a way that really helps people connect to a deep understanding of their body and mind and reconnect to their hearts. And so she herself has met many men through online dating in the US and France, and loves to help people find a way to enjoy dating as an adventure. She specializes in helping smart, accomplished professionals to reconnect to their body their way. You get to connect in your own unique way and break free of formulaic approaches to finding love. So welcome, Kimberley. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lynsie. I love your podcast so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I love my podcast so much too. And although, I love the podcast because I get to have, I really feel so blessed to have such amazing conversations, such diverse conversation with a diverse range of women, and just really hold that space for them to share their wisdom so that all of our listeners get to, be entrenched in that or really marinate in that for this hour. So thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom, because I know this is a topic that can be really frustrating for women, like, feeling that they're very accomplished, that they're smart, they're doing all the things, and they're not able to really find the relationship that they know that they want and deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those of you listening, I just want you to know that you are not alone. And if you are currently dating, I bow down to you. That means you're courageous, you're creative, you're resilient, and you believe in love. Like, we should be applauding all the people who are dating all the time. And instead, in our media and in workplace conversations and in family gatherings, people make fun of you. It's like a joke, or people who are partnered were like, oh, the dating, I could never do that. It's so terrible. Those dating apps are so terrible. And I would like to really shift that, because according to the Pew statistics, over 40% of adult Americans are uncoupled before the pandemic. And I think it's probably more now. So we're not a minority. We're not like, you're not the only one. You're not like the lone person, but sometimes it can feel that way, depending on where you live and who your social circles are. And especially this sort of narrative about it being something of a loser status means that you might even have people in your life who are single and dating, and they're not shouting it from the rooftops. Like, we don't come together as a community to support people who are looking for love. And that's what I want to change. I want to take the shame away, the stigma away, and say, you want to go on a spiritual journey? You want to find out who you really are? Let's go on a dating journey, because all the stuff is there. All the stuff comes up. It's like the crucible, your body image, your self-love, what your mother told you, what happened in middle school, what the patriarchy has wrought upon this United States of America, or wherever you happen to be, because it's, it's around the world, what the future is going to look like. All of these things show up when we think about dating, and it becomes enormous.
It's so interesting that as you were talking, I wrote down a little note, spiritual journey, right before you said it, because I was like, this is it is very much a spiritual practice, being out there in the dating world. You're talking about how you need to be courageous, that you still believe in love, and you're putting yourself out there in a way that makes you very vulnerable all the time. And then in that vulnerability, all your stuff comes up, all of your conditioning, everything everyone taught you about yourself, what you believe to be about yourself, others, and the world, all the conditioning of the patriarchy, as you mentioned, it's all there. So it takes a tremendous amount of courage and resiliency to keep going back in, because it's like going into that arena. Like, do I go back in? I might be met with all my shame, or I might come out bloodied. I might come out feeling triumphant
or rejected. Oh my
rejected.
gosh, might get rejected.
Yeah. And that's huge. Who wants that feeling? That is like, oh.
And I want to, if I could add a bigger piece, like what keeps me going is right now, after the pandemic, as AI is taking over many things, human connection is a revolutionary act. It's an anti-capitalist act. It's free. it's pleasurable,
Yeah.
and we're not lone wolves. We are
Mm-hmm.
part of a bigger microcosm, and it's become so tender for so many people. So it's like, in the bigger picture, like getting together with other people and being empathetic to wherever they are is revolutionary and threatened right now, I think, in danger a bit.
So why is it so hard after the pandemic to come back together? And not just in relationships, but also why is it so hard to, why is dating so
Yeah.
hard after the pandemic?
Well, a couple of things. We've lost like the actual physical infrastructure of connection. Like in the past, many people met their spouses at work or somewhere they went regularly, and those have been shut down for the last 2 to 3 years. And the other piece is like social connection is a bit of a muscle, right? It's not easy. It's something we learn when we're adolescents, like how to talk to someone you don't know, right? It's something that gets better with practice, and we're rusty. The way we talk to each other on Zoom is not at all the way we talk in person. We're missing the little interruptions, the awareness of small expressions, body language. And so I think right now we're in a very uncomfortable place with social connections where we either have to move towards them awkwardly and getting better at it, or we'll just retreat into a world where all our sort of oxytocin and dopamine comes from a screen interaction.
And I'm curious if you, maybe you can have the understanding to answer this question, because it just popped in. Like, we're getting the oxytocin and the dopamine release from the screens. That's what keeps us addicted. But what is the difference in that release? Because it's oxytocin, it's dopamine. Is it different when you're in person? I mean, because you're still getting that release. So
Yeah.
what in addition are you getting when you're connected in person versus on screen, if you're still...
Yeah, I think about this all the time. The difference is that when it fades, because it doesn't last very long, right? These little spurts. When it fades and you're alone on a screen, you sink, right? And then you need more, you need another one. Whereas really what our nervous systems need after a pulse of good feeling is calm connectedness, right? So the best thing to do after a high is to like take a bath or meditate. And instead the screens make us look for another high. Whereas if you're in person with someone is sort of like holding the space for your ups and downs. The screens give us nothing for the downs except telling us to seek another up. Whereas, that wonderful feeling like you're on a walk with someone and you're talking and you don't have anything else to talk about, and you're like 5-7 minutes go by and you're looking at the world. It's that like beautiful sort of parallel play like toddlers do, like being in the same space but not being on. We don't have very many of, I don't know of a way. I mean, I guess you can meditate on Zoom, but it's not the same. It's not that same co-regulation warmth.
Yeah, the co-regulation. And also, it's when you were talking, I was thinking, oh, wow, you're connecting with someone. And in that connection, it opens you up to feel connected to your surroundings, is what I was feeling when you're talking, giving that example of walking together outside, and that it opens you up to see the beauty of other things because you have that connection with someone else. And if you're always looking, and I feel this, like when I'm on my screens, I get off of it and I'll pay attention. I pick it back up. I pick it back up. I pick it back up. And I'm like, I know what's going on in my brain. I teach this to my clients as well. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just don't feel good at all afterwards.
Right.
And
you're a very aware person. Like you're tracking yourself. Not everyone has those tools.
And
especially people who didn't live without the devices, right? They don't know.
They don't know. And that's the scary thing, is that so many of these kids nowadays, I'm already starting to sound like my mom, that, they're raised with them at a very young age. They don't have the experience without it. And it can be really uncomfortable for them to be without it.
Yeah.
I mean, I carry my phone with me everywhere. And I think my partner gets frustrated with that, because like, why are you carrying it when you're on a walk? Because all of a sudden I feel like I need to have the phone there. I need to capture something. I'm like, what am I doing?
Well, it's become a tool of self-soothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's become, and I think you and I both know the antidote to that. And this is what I try to teach is we have another tool of self-soothing that's our body. Like put the phone down and rub your body.
Yeah.
Touch your own head. Oh, caress your face. Like it's all there. Like it's magical. And I think we've lost that a little bit because our eyes are always going outward to get connection, which is legit and valid. People needed connection and need connection. And the screens were the only way for several years. And so I think it makes dating tricky because we're sort of programmed to get likes and dislikes or bumps and balls or whatever you want from the apps. And that's completely negates the other person who's there. Like they only exist to sort of bring us back into our negative bias. Like, and it's really hard to have a lot of empathy for a stranger who's on a dating app. And, you know, whether or not you're straight or queer, whoever you see on that app, like, so I'm straight, I see a lot of men with wraparound sunglasses, backwards baseball cap. I have no idea what's going on in their life. And yet they too are on there because their hearts are lonely in some way.
Yeah. And so it's so easy to just judge immediately by what you see when totally negating that they're putting themselves out there as well, that they're feeling vulnerable and they, you know, and what they're seeking, what kind of love they're seeking could be a little bit different than what we're seeking, but we don't know based on the photo that they've put up there. Maybe that's the best photo they have of them. And maybe the photo that they've chosen with the hat on and the glasses on is a way of protection as well. We don't even know.
It's so vulnerable.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable. And so, and I do believe like we see this all the time on social media, how it's so easy to really criticize and be really not our best selves on social media, but we've been saying things that we wouldn't normally say in person to that, and you know, to that person. And so, you know, since we've already kind of touched on the dating app a little bit, like how bad are they really? I mean, how many people are using the dating apps currently, would you estimate?
Billions, and don't forget worldwide. It's a huge crisis in Asia as well. It's not a US specific thing. It's all over the world. The big ones operate all over the world. There are some specific ones for different regions in the world. Tens of billions of dollars industry. It's a tens of billions of dollars industry. So I'm sorry, friends, they'd have no incentive to get you off the apps, despite whatever their tagline is, despite whether or not they have a figurehead woman as a CEO. But really, it's a bro culture. I wish I could come up with slow dating, like slow food, that the apps want your eyes on them. So whatever it takes. So there's a whole, I've studied this. So when you first get on an app, you will see a lot of really great people, right? It's like, ooh, your mouth will water. You'll see like 15. And then you're going to see a whole bunch of people who are completely inappropriate. And why? Because that will keep you on looking, despairing for another good one. They know exactly what they're doing. They know everything about everyone who's on there, how many times they're clicked, how quickly they're clicked or swiped. That's the right word. How quickly. So they'll give you the juicy, you know, big swipers, which are usually white. You know, there's a whole problem with race in the algorithms. People who are not white do not get as many swipes and do not get forefronted in nearly as much, no matter where you are in the country. And so what they want is for you to keep swiping. So the first they give you a yummy thing, like, oh, wow, there's so many great potential partners out there. And then they give you a long period of paucity to keep you like going, to keep you up till 2 a.m, like looking, like, wait, isn't there anyone out there? Oh my gosh, maybe I'm terrible. Maybe this is all I could possibly get. Or these people who are they're wonderful people, but they're not really matches. So then if you get a dating coach, they say, get off the apps and have a break. So get off. And when you get back on, it'll be the same cycle. So what I tell my clients is only go on the dating apps when you're feeling very, very resourced, not late at night, not when you're hungry, not when you're bored, and 10 swipes a day. and then put it away. So I do believe it's a way to meet people outside of your social circles, but it takes a lot of individual self-control and self-knowledge.
Wow. And I'm thinking, can people have that amount of self-control when it's been devised to really play off the chemistry of your brain?
Totally.
I am very self-aware. I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. I'm a mindfulness coach. And I see myself grabbing my phone all the flipping time, even though I had just picked it up. I'm like, you have
Right.
no
And
new
imagine you were
emails.
looking for love. You were like feeling
Oh,
lonely.
yeah. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could put the phone down. I really just don't know if I could do that, especially because it's playing off a deep longing in my heart. And yeah, and I'm thinking back to what you said about, oh, well, now I just lost the thought. Well, that's okay because it's time for us to go to break. And during the break, perhaps I'll regain that thought. Do you ever have those moments when just like everything just goes blank? It's like quiet. We seek the quiet and the solitude sometimes, and then it comes in at the most inappropriate time, like when you're doing a live radio show. That's not the kind of stillness and quiet I was hoping for in my brain at this moment. But we're
Okay.
gonna come right back after this short break. So if you love the show, if you love Women Thriving Unapologetically and all the guests that we have on the show, and you want to have more guests like Kimberley, then definitely reach out to me at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com, because I am seeking sponsors and supporters of the show so that we can grow and rise and thrive together, so that you can have a chance to highlight what you do, your gifts, your products, and then support the show and continuing to grow and expand and reach more people across the globe. So we'll be right back after this short break.
All right, nicely done. All clear. Back in 2.
Okay. So I've been having a lot of those perimenopausal pauses.
It's okay. I can just keep going.
Yeah, that was great. I'm just like, oh, I just want this every single woman to listen to this show that's out there dating or will potentially date again, to listen to this, because yeah, I would love to just come back to what you were saying about just this industry and how it's not serving us, and it's designed not to serve us, and to come back to that, and even how it's not.
And it's gendered. Men are all about the visual, but women generally that's not it, right? So this looking and knowing.
Mhm.
Look at this picture and know. I'm letting let the
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
I want to
think
give
that,
people hope too, so we can talk
oh
about
yeah.
people
Yeah.
can.
Absolutely. I feel like we're doing like the apps, we're bringing them down, we'll bring them back up, bring them back down, bring them back up.
Yeah, people really
Oh,
don't think they're being manipulated. they think it's them.
no.
But
And
that's
that's
the
so sad.
whole joke of capitalist culture, is the systemic dysfunction put on the individual, whether
Mm,
it be screen addiction, weight problems,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
poverty. It's like your fault, your individual fault, and it's really systemic.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism does not want us to be partnered. Partnered people don't buy shit.
Yeah, they're too damn happy.
All right, just
Okay,
about to come
great.
back.
You are listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Hello, and welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. We are today having an incredible conversation with Kimberley Healey. She's a relationship coach. And we were talking before the break about dating apps and how these dating apps are really not designed to have your best interests in mind. They don't want you to leave. They're actually designed to keep you addicted to the app. Because if you leave, then guess what? They're not earning any money. And during the break, Kimberley mentioned that capitalism doesn't want you to be partnered. Because if you're partnered, then you're happy and you're going to buy less shit.
And you don't need 2 houses. You don't need 2 cars. I mean,
Yeah.
all the things, like there's so much less money to be made.
Yeah. So I just would like to kind of touch back on what you were talking about and maybe even flesh it out a little bit more before the break, because I think it's worth repeating because I think we need to have things repeated to us so we understand that these apps are really a capitalistic, I want to say entity. There's other words I was going to use, but maybe I won't say that on the show today. That that is really taking us further away from love and self-esteem and feeling empowered.
Yeah. So there are fewer relationships in the world as the apps have boomed.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And in countries with low birth rate like Japan, the people are getting very nervous because the more apps there are, the less people couple up.
That's fascinating. The more apps there are, the less people are coupled up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So why even use an app?
Well, during the pandemic, there was no other way, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no natural way to meet people. And sadly, the sort of pandemic way of life has continued for a lot of people. They work remote, they're at home. I think things are starting to change. People are going out more. What I fear, though, is that people use that. There's this way that when you use an app, we're so used to using app, like we don't ask friends for rides anymore. We Uber, right? We don't cook anymore. We get HelloFresh, like long list of things, right? We outsource everything. The app is this illusion that you can outsource your love life easily, right? It's easy, it's taken care of, it's sorted, it's done. And yet that's probably the one thing you'll never be able to outsource is how to navigate a human connection, a friendship, a relationship, even a hookup, how to navigate that. And so I think that we need to remember that the difficulty of human connection is a good thing, that life should not be easy on some level when we're meeting people and really being involved with them intimately. Intimacy, if it's easy, it's not intimacy. So I think people should use the apps to still connect and find people. They should use them selectively. They should use them only a few minutes a day. I just talked to a young man in a park. He's like, how can I find a date? He's on about 8 apps. He's on them an hour and a half a day. Wow. Every day, right? And I bet he's not exceptional. I think it's probably happening. So I think there is a way that I've met lots of wonderful people through the apps, but you get on there, you do not text more than 10 times, you set up a meeting. If there's no meeting, you end the connection. This is very hard for women to do because they're not used to saying no. They're not used to asking for what they want. And they're men and women like, well, they liked me, so maybe it'll work out, right? I had one guy, I was like, who do you date? And he's like, oh, I date the cutest girl who will go out with me. I was like, it's still sort of gamified on some level for many of us.
Yeah. But I like what you said.
Spiritual journey. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no. I liked how you said before the break that you have to be really resourced. Yeah. And be fed, be feeling good about yourself before you get on there, limit your time on there. And then also just have the awareness that this dating app you can find someone on there. However, it sounds like the more time you spend on there, the less likely you might be to find someone because the algorithm seems to be not in your favor. It wants you to stay on there longer. So it wants to make you feel bad about yourself. And the way it's going to make you feel bad about yourself is to give you all these awful selections and you're wondering like, oh, is this the best that this is what they think I deserve, and that's how women would tend to take it. This is who you think I deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't lift people up and say, but you know what does lift people up and make them feel good about themselves? Actually meeting in person. Yeah.
So use the app to actually make that connection. If someone says, no, I don't want a connection, then you're like, okay, bye-bye.
Oh, they never say, no, I don't want a connection.
Well, I meant like to meet up.
I wish people did.
In-person connection. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I've had, some friends of mine on the app and they reach out and say, Do you want to connect, like to meet up?" And then
Yeah.
they kind of player a little bit
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
keep, throwing it out there and like doing that whole like, what's the like, I'm losing the term, but when you're kind of
Ghosting,
not ghosting, but like
breadcrumbing.
when you're texting sexual things.
Oh, sexting.
Sexting. Yes, thank you. So they're sexting and getting that kind of, endorphin
Yeah.
rush from that,
Yeah.
but they refuse to meet in person. And
Yeah.
so, and it
Cut
becomes
them
very,
off.
you got to cut
Cut
them
them
off.
off.
They don't want to meet in person. Bye-bye.
Be done. Yeah.
Be done.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. I'm looking for a different kind of connection, and block them, unmatch them, block them, Marie Kondo them. They are not bringing you joy. If anyone is texting you and their texts are not bringing you joy, the end. The
Yeah.
end. Don't hold out because maybe they will bring you joy. No, the end. Yeah. And don't feel bad about hurting people's feelings by saying no, because by being on a dating app, all of those people have volunteered to be in this social experiment with us. And this is how we all learn. It's okay. And for heterosexual people, clarity, men, I think, like clarity, like at least they know where they stand.
Mhm.
Yeah. Everyone likes clarity. I shouldn't say that. So yeah, so these are my rules. Not more than 10 swipes a day. You can make your own rules, but make some rules, set boundaries for yourselves. The best way to learn to have boundaries is to put some on your own self and see if you can hold them. Don't swipe when you're not feeling well. And then, I say 3 to 5 days of texting or 10 texts, and then a phone call. I always like to hear someone's voice speak and have an actual call. You can have a phone call on the apps safely. You don't have to give anyone your phone number. All the apps you can have a video chat on the apps too. You could do a video chat or a phone call. And then based on that, like feeling how the conversation went, set up a meeting. Then my rule for the meeting is first dates, very, very short, 35 minutes. Show up and tell the person, I only have X amount of time. They will also be relieved, because it's a lot to have an open-ended meeting with a stranger. Like maybe we're going to end up having dinner. Maybe they'll go back to my house. No, 35 minutes. And as they say in France, it's good to stay a little hungry, right? And then you're looking forward to the next potential thing, or you've invested so little and it's not a match. Nobody's hurt. I wouldn't do a lot of physical connection on that first date unless it just spontaneously happens and feels good. No obligation whatsoever. Also, don't have a meal. That's a big investment. Like, you can't leave. Go on a walk, have a cup of tea, something very easy and casual. So that's my advice, to use the app and to start to thrive. Use the apps without flailing. But I have more advice about not using the apps. But what else would you like to know, Lynsie?
Yeah, I just want to recap that. So 10 swipes a day. Make sure you're only like on the apps when you feel really well resourced, feeling good about yourself, well fed, well rested. 3 to 5 days, you can text, then you have a phone call. Make sure your first connection in person is short,
Yep.
like 35 minutes max, no physical connection unless it suddenly feels like very spontaneous and aligned. And then no meals, like don't make it a long thing, because then you might feel trapped and it becomes a big thing and a big investment. So I love that. Those are all like sound very doable, and it gives you a sense of empowerment in that moment, like the boundaries. And I think women forget that boundaries actually empower you.
Yeah.
They're not blocking love, they're
Mm.
empowering you. And so we need to really tap into that feeling of empowerment again, especially when it comes to love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I think back to like, this deep longing for love that we have, and both of us, have yoga backgrounds. And one of the Yoga Sutras talks about one of the deepest longings we have is to know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, and who we are at our core innate self is love. And so, what would you say to those that are seeking love outside of themselves about how they can connect to the love within them and how that would change their dating experience?
Yeah. So, everyone's heard that you have to love yourself before you could love someone else. as a coach and not a therapist, I would mix that up a little bit and say
Yeah.
you can learn to love yourself as you're meeting other people. It's not like you have to have that sorted first. It's hard to sort that by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's through these connections with other people. I mean, people are nice to each other. You go on a date, you're going to get a lovely compliment. You tell someone that it's not a connection and they'll say, oh, that's too bad. I really liked you. Like, good things will happen to you. It's not all ghosting and rejection and insulting. I think I've met almost 50 men and I have had no bad experiences through online dating. I mean, I'm kind of an anthropologist of it right now too, but so yeah, there's a way in which we can learn to love ourselves. Like, even like, let's say you haven't gone on a date in 7 or 10 years and you go out on a date and it's terrible. You go home and you're like, I did it. I'm a champion. I did it. Whew, I'm amazing, right? There's a lot of self-love that comes through this bumpy journey and you can go tell your friends, like, I went on a date. It was so, and they'll hug you and give you compliments or whatever. There's a lot of self-love that we learn by kind of bumping into things, and dating is a lot of bumping into things.
Yeah. And it is like that spiritual journey. You're finding your way back home to yourself a little bit at a time. It doesn't happen all at once. And there's, finding that connection to who we are happens through a lot of different ways. And as you mentioned, like, this dating is this deep spiritual journey. And I really appreciate, when you said the piece where, if you go on a date and it's awful, you still celebrate it. Celebrate that, because in that celebration, you actually are giving yourself a dopamine release right there. And then you're
Mhm.
giving yourself teaching your brain to say, oh, it's okay to go out there and do it again. Instead of beating yourself up and saying, what was wrong with me? Or this is awful. This is the best I can do. There's no men out there. And doing that spin, that's going to make you feel awful and make it much more difficult to go back in and try again, and just celebrate, like,
Yeah.
and be curious. I tell people to be curious more often. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm happily in a relationship, but I was telling you before we started the show that you asked me, about how long it took me. Did I have a long stretch of time where I wasn't dating? And I did, like, before I met my current partner. And I mean that forever and ever, Laura. She
Current
listens.
and forever.
She's listening to the show. What do you mean only current? So that, there's a really long stretch of no dating. There was one time that my ex, who's still a dear friend of mine, was sitting down with me and he wanted me to get on an online dating app, and he was helping me set it up. I thought, it's just so weird. And I felt really defeated and deflated in that moment about what the options were. Like, no, I can't do this. So I just decided to not do the dating apps. And I didn't date for nearly 7 years. I mean, I think I had, in that 7-year time span, one individual date with 2 different people. And my friends, on one occasion, my friends suggested this person. And I was just like, are you serious? Do you not know me? Are we going to not be friends now because of
Yeah.
this thing?
Yeah. So
It
that's
was
something
awful.
that I really want to address. A lot of my clients and single friends are angry at their partnered friends for not introducing them to someone. But it's such a risk to introduce someone to someone, because the exact thing, like, really, that's who you think I want to go out with? So people who are dating, I want you to hear this. Your partnered friends want you to find love, and they don't know what that looks like for you. You have to get really specific. You cannot say to someone, don't you know any single men or women? You cannot. You're putting matchmaking pressure on them. They don't know, like, that you like to be tied up. They don't know that you need 6 months of dating before you'll kiss. They don't want to know that stuff. So what if you're looking for love and your partnered friends want to help you? This is the courageous thing you have to do. You have to tell them exactly what you want right now. Right now, I want someone to practice dancing with on Tuesday nights. Right now, I want someone that would go canoeing with me on Sunday mornings. Right now. And then they'll think of someone, and there's not all this pressure that it's a love match. It's just like, oh, I know someone who loves to play pickleball. You should meet, right? And they do want you to be coupled. And it's very uncomfortable for them to not fix it for you, but they can't fix it for you until you tell them really specifically, right now, today, this week, I am looking for this.
That makes it so much simpler. I mean, it really does. And it makes it easier for them. And it also takes I would feel like it would take the pressure off the person that's looking for love as well. Like, okay, I'm not looking for all of this whole package. I just want someone to go hiking with on the
Mhm.
weekends. That's it. For just 2
Yeah,
hours. Let's go for a 2
yeah,
hour hike. That's all I want. And that
yeah.
seems so much more simple because then there's so many people out there that have that interest and you have no idea what their other interests are, but then it becomes kind of fun to, uncover what the other interests are. And then your friends are not so nervous about like, I don't know, like, I think this is the person. And the thing is like who I'm with now, my friends would never have picked because
Right,
I
right.
identified as heterosexual my entire life. And now I'm with a woman. And I didn't know that that's where I would find love.
Yeah,
I had
good point.
no idea. And so they couldn't help me with that. And it just happened to, she just arrived into my life. And it took some time for me to open up to that, to realize, oh, this is actually the love that I was looking for. Because I had to go through a lot of my own storytelling about what's been indoctrinated into me through culture and just
Mhm.
really opening up to it. And so there is absolutely no way I would have found her on a dating app or through my friends.
Right.
It had to be more organic for me. And it doesn't mean that's the way for everyone else, but I just wanted to say that, okay, friends.
Yeah, and if your friends set you up with someone who's not your mate, that person's brother-in-law's neighbor might be your mate, right? Like weaving connections is always good. Even if it's not perfect love connection, it could lead to something.
Yeah. So just stay curious, stay curious. So we are up to our second and last break of the show. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back in just a moment. And during our short break, definitely reach out to me. I love building community. I love weaving community and bringing connections together. So start that connection by reaching out to me at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. I am very responsive to email and I would love to hear from you. And until then, let's take the short break and we'll be right back.
Okay, good segment. All clear. Back in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Matt. Okay. I love that little tip. That was so good.
Yeah, it really works.
So good. And it's just, so good for other things. Even if I'm not looking for love, I just want some friends to hang out with, like make new relationships. Hey, do you know anyone that,
Hmm.
you know, looking for a female or male friend just to
Yeah,
do
stand
something
up
together?
paddleboarding. Do you know anyone who has a stand up paddleboard? I want to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Build that muscle,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
connection. Yeah. Brilliant.
It totally works too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just looking through like some questions. So many. Which ones do we want? We'll see what comes up. Maybe a
Okay.
couple of the somatic practices would be nice. Give them something that they can
Yeah.
actually do. I mean, you mentioned just briefly at the very beginning, but maybe something a little more concrete that they can take away. Oh, there's so much here. I make these little short snippets, video snippets for to promote the show
Hmm.
on social media. And I'm always like, I'm already thinking like, how am I going to pick one from this show? So many.
Well, it's a big thing looking for love.
It
And
is a really big thing.
yeah.
Yeah. I have had that song this morning when I was going over the notes for the show. I got this song stuck in my head, looking for love in all the wrong places.
All right, coming back in just a few seconds.
Okay. Hmm.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Hello, ladies. Welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. I'm here with Kimberley Healey, and we're having a really great conversation. I was telling Kimberly during the break that I always create these little video clips from the Zoom call that we recorded for the radio, and I posted on social media. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find just one? We've had so many great tidbits here. And so there's another thing that I wanted to ask Kimberly to offer is some of the somatic practices that we can do for those of us that are looking for love. And I think even those of us that are just seeking love in all its varieties, like I'm seeking deeper love in different areas of my life as well. So I want to know, share,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So the one I come back to all the time that's been so helpful for me as sort of a brain heavy individual in this world, I lead with the head, and that's valued in our culture, is a technique called microcosmic breath that comes out of Taoist tradition. And it's basically just to imagine sort of three centers where we want love. Obviously, our pelvis, right? Our sexual center. So just drop in feeling that, like that is a place we want love. And maybe other things too that are what you see as an expression of love. And then we have our heart, where we really, really want love, but that's where we also carry a lot of tension, a lot of shutdown, a lot of holding. And then our mind, right? So our mind is rushing to solve the discomfort and come up with a reason why we're in the state we're in. And it doesn't necessarily help us. Like dating from our brains is just exhausting. So let's just do 1 minute here. I'm going to invite you to breathe into your pelvis. You can imagine like a warm light there. Remember this energetic center of yourself, your sexual center. And then we're going to loop that warm light up to the heart, up your back to the heart, and then back down. So making a connection. So warm light coming up to the heart, and then maybe it changes color and comes back down to the pelvis. Looping the energy up the back from the pelvis, pulling that vibrant, sparkly pelvis energy into the heart, letting it fill the heart, and then exhaling back down to the pelvis. I love doing this all the time, even when I'm just out and about. And then pulling up to the brain. So we're going to pelvis, touching the heart, and up to your beautiful mind. And then exhale from the mind down to the heart, down to the pelvis. So a long oval from the pelvis up to the heart, to the mind, and then exhaling down. Moving the light, the energy up, and then letting it come down. And each part really has so much to offer as far as love goes. And letting it dynamically move. So we call that the microcosmic orbit. What do you think, Lynsie?
I love that. I'm curious, is the looping, does it go up the back body and down the front back body? Is that
You
how
can
it
do it
loops?
either way.
Either way.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
go up. Yeah, so I find up the back and down the front is a little more relaxing because we tend to be lifting up, but it's more invigorating to go up the front and down the back, sort of depending on your energetic level.
Yeah.
So I'm an Iyengar yoga teacher, and I just went to our national convention with Abhijata Iyengar, the granddaughter of Guruji BKS Iyengar. And she said many brilliant things, but the one that I loved was mobility before stability. And I really want to encourage those of you who are dating to remember that moving emotion, moving feeling, moving sexual charge, moving breath does lead to a sense of safety and stability. Clinging rigidly, freezing, holding is less safe than mobility. Like if I asked you to stand on one foot, you'd be micro moving the whole time, not a stone. And it's a little bit counterintuitive, but really through mobility, through moving our bodies, through moving our breath, through moving our sexual pleasure, we can find more balance.
And I love how, this microcosmic breath can really support just love, whatever type of love you're looking for.
Mhm.
Like I have a great love, like an intimate relationship, but here recently I've been noticing this kind of lack of love and passion for some of my areas of work. And so I'm like, oh, like there can be this vibrancy in one area of our life and this stagnancy in another. And I love how this can be whatever flavor of love it is that you're wanting to move through your body and become more resonant with. Because I mean, how many types of love are there? I
Yeah.
mean, countless,
Yeah. Yeah. And
countless.
if I could just say one more thing, like those of you who are single and loveless, you're not. You're having amazing, deep connections, whether it be with your animals, your neighbors, the people you care for. You're not a lone person on an island. You're just having flavors of love, and you're learning so much from these connections. And
Yeah.
then I think that's one more thing that I would want to really emphasize is learning to be good at dating, becoming a master dater, uh, means you're going to be much, much better at relationship. Like these skills are lifelong. It's not, all these skills of setting boundaries, coming back to pleasure, taking care of yourself, being clear. They're going to be amazing when you are partnered.
Thank you for saying that. That's so true. And I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, they're just building that relationship muscle. And it's beautiful when you step into a relationship feeling um closer to who you know yourself to be and what your boundaries are and what you need, and being
Yeah.
really clear in that from the very beginning because you've had the practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm curious. So, what does it mean to thrive in dating? What would you think that means?
Yeah. So when I get done with my one-on-one coaching with my clients, they literally say, I'm so excited to get out there and date. like,
Awesome.
like, I don't know, I'm afraid of skydiving and I'm afraid of roller coasters, but if this is the equivalent of someone, and this recently happened to me, someone explaining to me exactly how it works, giving me tools to take care of myself, and I can't wait to jump out of a plane. Like it's going to be so awesome and fun. And I'm probably going to do it a lot of times, as opposed to I'm just dating because there's some goal at the end. Because if we're not enjoying our present moment, our process, like any great artist knows this, if you're not enjoying the process, the result isn't going to be very enjoyable either.
I often share with people what thriving for the show means, what it means to me, and I always emphasize that thriving is not an end goal or a destination. It's who you are and how, the journey along the way. It's how
Yeah.
you're showing up in those moment
Yeah.
to moment
Yeah.
of daily life. And so I appreciate you saying that. And um, so what does unapologetic mean to you?
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is a big one, especially for women, which
Yeah.
means finally learning to date and show up as yourself, not as a people pleaser, not as a perfect example of something, not as what it looks like in porn or the media, but as yourself. And let me tell you, showing up present and as yourself is so sexy and so compelling and so adorable. Like people are going to swoon. So unapologetically means like, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I'm looking for. And I think I don't know if you have other examples, but I think that might be dating might be the hardest place to do that.
Yeah. Because if you're going into, I call it the arena. I don't know. I think it's kind of stuck in my head from Brene Brown, but if you're going in, it's a very vulnerable place. And what do we do when we feel vulnerable? We put all the armor on and all of the different faces and shields. And so showing up completely you is really challenging. And even sorting out who you are, like who are you? Like, because
Yeah.
sometimes you step into that on a date and you're like, like I've had this in my head before, like back when I was dating, like, who am I being right now? This isn't who I really am. Like, just go
Yeah.
ahead and show this
Yeah.
person who you are, because I want them to know who I am, because this is going to go anywhere, then they need to know who I am from the very beginning. So I'm not wasting any time.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one more tip I would give is like, go on dates to be present to yourself. Like, don't go on a date to evaluate the person, to look at them under a microscope. Are they good? Are they bad? Don't worry about that. Go on a date and be like, how am I feeling? How am I breathing? How sweaty are my hands? How restless am I? What am I feeling? Like, because it's
For me, it's like, how much am I eating right now just because I'm uncomfortable?
yeah, it's a very intense moment to be like noticing oneself, not changing yourself in any way, but like really being present to yourself. And the other person, you'll know whether or not you want to see them again if you pay attention to your own feelings, like your own sensations. Like, get back into your intuition and enjoy it.
Yeah. Go on a date for yourself and get in touch with that intuition, and you'll know when the right person arrives. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. So I want everyone to know how they can reach out to you and connect with you, especially if they want some one-on-one support and finding love.
Yeah. So my website is kimberleyhealey.com, EY both times. And I'm happy to book a session with someone and have a little chat and see how they're doing. You can also follow me on Instagram, Healey Delight, Ley Delight. I'm giving a free workshop on Friday, tomorrow, on some somatic practices. So it's just going to be a somatic sampler. It's on Eventbrite. You can find it on my Instagram and on my webpage. And it'll just be doing some of the breathing work, some of that stuff that we did, not a lot of talking. And I would love to work with people, and reach out if you have questions or concerns, or, I have forgotten a certain aspect of dating that's come up for you. I would love to hear from you. I would love to learn from you.
Awesome. So definitely reach out to Kimberly and then check out the free workshop on Eventbrite. So that's an awesome offering, and you actually get to do some of the somatic exercises similar to what we did here today on the show. So you get to actually feel that in your own body, and reach out to her on Instagram and her website, her name. And just to emphasize, Kimberly is with an Ley, and her Healey is with an Ley as well. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for being on the show. This has been such a great conversation. I've learned so much from you, and I appreciate your time and your wisdom and just your commitment to this work and helping people find love, and to do it in a way that is really well resourced and makes them feel good about themselves and courageous and curious and excited again. So I appreciate all that you do. And thank you all for listening again to Women Thriving Unapologetically. And I do hope that you'll reach out and connect with me as well, because I really do love building these connections with women, and so that we all feel really well resourced, and that we can keep those connections growing globally. So until next time, my friends, much love and many, many blessings.
All right, awesome job today. Good show. All clear.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Thanks.
Take care.
Like
Have a
the
great
air
rest of your day.
traffic controller there.
What'd you say?
It's like the air traffic controller.
No, just like, oh, where did he come from?
Yeah.
Do you have a couple seconds, or minutes, just
Yeah.
to check in with our Facebook community? Sometimes they listen
Absolutely.
after the
Especially
fact.
if there's some questions.
Let's see. Let me refresh this page. Okay. Good morning. Actually, good info. There's no questions, but just some comments. I love deep connection. Good info for all areas of my life. Thank you, Kimberly. So,
Good.
yeah, that's awesome. So we don't have any questions right yet. Oftentimes, ladies drop in and listen later on. However, if they do have any questions, I'll just direct them to you, and you can feel free to join the Facebook group as well.
Oh yeah, I'm not on there. Okay.
Yeah, so that oh, absolutely, because I want the Eventbrite link so I
Yeah.
can put
So
it in the group.
is it under your radio show name or your name?
My name. No,
Okay.
it's under the radio show name, Women Thrive Unapologetically. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop record.